to keep tabs on the mood in the room as it relates to HR, because I do think HR have part of the solution, but they can also be part of the problem. And I've started to see a few people talking about how they've revamped their diversity and inclusion strategy. They are doing more to recognise the experiences of their black colleagues, but they're doing also more to recognise the intersectionality, okay, into other identities, you know, as it crosses over into, you know, gender and disability, and right, so I get that. But then there is a renewed level of energy and discussion about diversity and inclusion. So they're still not talking about the specific challenges and barriers that face black people. They are still not talking about what they are doing about processes and systems within their business. They're just talking louder about the importance of diversity and inclusion. And they are still using that ridiculous inviting people to dance and, you know, and all of that business, spinning around on the dance floor and all of that sort of stuff. And they're still not even mentioning the word black, anti-racism, anti-black racism, or equality. So here's my thing with this, is that I absolutely get that if you're sat in an organisation right now and you're the HR lead, you're probably thinking, oh my God, like when's the D&I person coming? Because I can't, it's just too much. And we've got this to go and do, and we've got COVID-19 to deal with, and we're trying to grow or trying to contract, and you know, so I completely get that your world is looking complicated right now. But if, because of the fact that your world is complicated, if you try and generalise this, or if you try to weave anti-black racism or solving systemic racism into the other category along with everybody else, we are going back to what got us here in the first place, which is the fact that traditional diversity and inclusion approaches did not address the black experience, did not address the black issues. So if you're looking at this from a point of convenience and or it's more palatable, so I go back to this point about comfort. It is more palatable to be talking about, to skip over the word black, you know, and they're rattling off, and then somebody always pipes up, well, you know, we've still got an all-male leadership board, so we've still got to do stuff about gender, so that needs a renewed focus because we're behind on the quota for that. Lo and behold, guess who gets put at the back of the queue yet again? Black people. It's black people. So the reason why I want to just highlight this is because just think about your whataboutisms, right? And I want you to challenge yourself about what's driving the whatabout. Is it because you genuinely feel like you have made inroads in 3 months to address systemic racism within your business and structural racism and structural inequalities, and you've looked at all aspects of the employee life cycle, and you've weaved in all aspects of the employee experience, and you've layered on top the stuff that you're doing around culture, and you've made sure that people actually understand the context and the history of racism and how we got here, so you've done all of that in 3 months, then you might want to then start thinking about how you weave all of that into the other marginalised groups within your business. If you haven't done that and you haven't set your firm foundation, I've got to question why you're so keen to skip over the anti-black and move into what about everybody else. Because some of the phrases that I'm hearing is, we don't want to leave behind other marginalised groups. I get it, but remember, they're still further forward than black people. In some instances, I know it's a generalisation, but you know what I mean. In terms of the focus and the ability for people to at least have the conversation. Because if that wasn't the case, I wouldn't be doing what I'm doing, and then there's hundreds and thousands of people who won't be doing what they're doing in this space. So that clearly is not the case. And the thing around addressing the barriers that affect black people is you've got to remember we're trying to do this with a societal backdrop that at the moment is pushing back on any focus on this. Let's not even start talking about those poor boys / men from diversity who are getting absolutely annihilated from parts of the British public who cannot believe the audacity of a group of artists to show support and raise awareness for the importance of addressing the experience of black people within the UK in prime time when they're trying to put their feet up and sip their cup of tea, God forbid. You know, and all the names and the insults that we're being given. But there's a rush to try and just sweep that over. You know, not everybody, like I'm, every time, like I do applaud the organisations who, like, they barely started, but at least they're using the right words in terms of understanding that the problem that they need to be solved, and they know the words, they still don't understand the context of the problem, but that's their starting point. So there are organisations that get that, there are individuals that get that, but within HR I am still seeing people who are treating this like another little initiative, and they're trying to find a way to group it together to make it more palatable to get sign off from the board. And what I'm saying is, if you're going to do that, you are creating more damage within your business at the expense of the black people that are there or who could be there if you don't have any black people in your business. So you've got to be able to sit with that. So before you come, like, I get that it's a business, I get that, I get there's lots of priorities, but there are always lots of priorities within business. So that's where it comes back to the leadership to say, actually, this is a priority or one of a small number of priorities, because, you know, not everything can be urgent important, you know, as we know. But I don't want to keep hearing, like, what about this group and what about that group, and we're better, you know, just pooling all of our resources together. You can do that, provided you've got real clarity about what the black issues are and the black barriers are. So when you've done your ethnicity pay gap reporting, you know what I mean, and you put in all the things that I've already talked about, then you can come and talk to me about, you know, how you then broaden that out. Because, you know, I always say this, if you can start to put some things in place that fundamentally address the gaps for black people, other marginalised groups and the rest of your employees, it's the only time I'll hear the equivalent of All Lives Matter, but everybody else will benefit, but only if you do the work properly there. And if we're in September and you're already talking about how you can morph it into something, you know, that makes it simple and easy for the business to understand, then this is about convenience and this is about comfort. This is not about making the change that needs to be made.